I just want to start with our why. We wanted to do Renewal because we believe that our students are more than a test score. Across the nation, not just in North Carolina, I believe as the pendulum has swung, we have put all of our eggs in an accountability basket that just talks about an end of grade standardized test. I think that's a very dangerous place for America to be, quite honestly, because standardized testing orders and sorts children in a way that is economically biased. Not only does it do that I think is harmful, but a 3 to 4 hour test days back to back for a 9-year-old doesn't seem like the best way of measuring what a child knows and is able to do. So we also know that we have a teacher pipeline shortage, and part of that is because some of the joy of teaching is out of the classroom as we've become more and more robotic and standardized and factory model that's not going to really serve the needs of our children as they go forward. That's not the world that they'll live in. So we continue to ask for charter-like flexibilities like many of our kindred school districts, and said give us a chance to show what we could do if our hands were untied and we could rethink education. And we just happened to be in the right place at the right time when that conversation occurred. We were really fortunate that Senator Lee and Representative Horn, who really at the time were trying to figure out the financial budget of schools and how you could do that differently. When I made this statement, they said, well, if we let you have all of your funding in one pot, could you change education? And we quickly said, you can't do it unless you unravel everything that comes with it. So during the process of that, in June, almost a year ago, House Bill 986 was signed into law. You all approved our plan on the 28th. Our local board approved it on the 28th. You approved it almost exactly a year ago, and we were off and running. So it's been 1 year. The legislation is a 5-year legislation, and I remember when I was asked the question, how long will it take you to do it? I said at least 5 years, and I believe that a lot more today than I did a year ago. We started off believing that our teachers were in the best place to determine what's best in education. So we assembled teacher-led design teams. The humor and irony about this is as we assembled these teacher-led teams in our school to talk about how we would transform education, we set up our own little mini bureaucracy in doing that. Had to backtrack and say, we're doing exactly what we were accusing Raleigh of doing, so let's back into how do these teacher-led design teams look different in every school. So lots of learning throughout the last year. We began with needs assessment. Most of our schools do needs assessment across the state and determining, but if you could really look at it differently, it took us a year to design our directional system. So I'm happy to share that with you and say we feel like that we've got a strong directional system and that our community and our businesses support. Then through the dollars of local philanthropists, by the way, we got no additional funding to do Renewal. I said that it wouldn't take any. I was probably wrong about that too. But we had a local philanthropist who supported a great deal of our work. And one of it was to send our schools all over the country, quite honestly, to see best practices everywhere. So we've had teacher-led design teams go as far as California to as close as Burlington. To see what their best practices are, so that when we came back to match our needs assessment, how this would look in each school. So each school started developing their own plans for Renewal. And as they do that, and I'll show you our process with that, it comes before a Board of Education, it comes before staff, quite honestly, and is vetted several times before it goes to our board, and then our board approves school by school their renewal plans. We are in the process, with the help of the Friday Institute, designing an evaluation system that would match our directional system. The problem with, and we've got to get this right, so I'm excited to have their help in how this will look, and we hope to have this rolled out sometime in September or October. And while I wish it was sooner, it takes time to develop an evaluation system that would be fair and truly aligned to a directional system. Because what is happening currently is what we say we want our children to be able to do and how we hold systems accountable for that work are not aligned. And so that creates the friction between actually getting done. If we say we want our students to learn to be good team players, standardized testing is exactly the opposite of that. So what is Renewal? It gives us flexibility in all of these areas. Curriculum, our teacher-led design teams are able to design new curriculum or change curriculum. It has exempted us from some state standardized testing, our NCFEs, and we've taken advantage of that. It allows us to get all of our funding in one pot, so to speak, and it's unrestricted in how we can spend it. So if we decided to give our superintendent $1 million raise and not have teacher assistants, we could choose to do that. Sound like a good idea. I haven't got anybody to go for it yet, but we have that kind of flexibility. Under personnel, we can hire teachers with industry expertise in their areas and their strengths, irregardless of teaching license. Again, when you go down that road, you can imagine all the work it takes to decide how you hire a renewal teacher and how other teachers feel about that process. Lots of conversations with our higher ed partners and our business partners, but we have put our toe in that water, and I'll show you some of that. Still a lot of work to be done in each of these areas. We are on a new calendar. Today is our first day of school. Our calendar was adopted. 85% of our community voted for the calendar that we are on, and that begins today, and we will end school about the third week of May. I'll also show you some of the results of that calendar, why we thought that was important. So I've talked about each one of these. I'm going to click through. This is the most important slide. This is a year's worth of work on one slide. It basically says we believe if the center of everything we do is about an engaged learner, you certainly can't have a factory model if you want people engaged and thinking. I describe engagement, if any of you have children or you've ever known a child and you've seen them play a video game, that's engagement. When you say come to dinner, they don't hear you. When you say they continue to work through that game regardless of if the house is on fire around them. That's what ideally we would love to see in our classrooms, is that our students are so engaged in the learning process that they will endure past when work is challenging and more rigorous. To get there, we have determined, through the help of our teacher-led design teams, that we want to look at academic skills in English, math, social studies, and science. And we want to identify, and we have in English and math, fundamental standards. We determine fundamental standards not to be power standards, the ones that are most often on the test. So I'll tell you in the beginning, we're not anticipating scoring higher on a standardized test when we finish our renewal directional system, because we are not putting our eggs in that basket. We are saying we believe that there are fundamental standards that are critically important, and we should go deeper and we should go slower on those things that are cross-curricular in every job that will be important. So, and that we will teach those through real-life problem solving instead of through worksheets and throwaway work. So an example of this would be, I'll use math. In Math 3, there are, I believe, 41 standards, depending on how you count them. Some of them have A and B, so there may be more than 41 standards. One of those standards is synthetic division. So I would ask you, how many of you use synthetic division in your work? Did you use it at all last year? In the last 10 years? I don't even know what synthetic division is, and my son teaches math. I still don't get what synthetic division is. So I would argue you could probably be fairly successful in life without knowing that standard. However, in 6th grade, we teach calculating percentages. How many of you use that? We use it every day, all the time, in everything we do. but yet it's a standard in the 6th grade. We build upon it later, but we don't actually teach that standard again. So we're saying we want to guarantee to our community, to our local community, that when you graduate from one of our high schools, you will know that fundamental standard. You may not know synthetic division. While synthetic division is nice to know, and if you ask a math teacher, they think it's pretty cool and they think it's occasionally useful. We think that there are good to know standards and they are fundamental to the purposes of life and growing. So we've identified those. So in Math 1, instead of 41 standards, this year we will go slower to be sure that there are 15 that we've identified inside of Math 3 that we want to guarantee to our community that we'll go slower and teach deeper. We had 46 teachers, excuse me, 46 teachers who wrote real life problems that align and co-curricular all of those together. We still have not identified our science and social studies standards, still a lot of work to do. But we have guides with real life problems for those areas in math and English for all grades, and we're rolling it out today. Each one of these pieces of this pie in our directional system, which is very unusual, probably the most unique to us, is they are all equally weighted. So we don't believe that academic skills, the teaching and learning process, is any more important than our other two, and that may come as a surprise to you. So the second one is unique life goals. We believe that every learner has their own set of goals that needs to be personalized, that they have their own unique smartness, their own unique talents, that they come to the table with different experiences, different career aspirations, and personal passions. We no longer ask our students, what do you want to be when you grow up? Because they may change jobs or where they work at 10 times during their career. But what we ask our students is, what great problem do you want to solve in this world? You may work in multiple companies solving that problem. So if I told you that I want to cure cancer, that's really important to me and that's my passion, then we start with their unique life goals. Now, I will say again, this is our directional system. We don't have all of the systems and procedures in place to operationalize this. In December of this year, we hope to roll out a digital portfolio for students K through 12. In that digital portfolio will be a picture of the child. So it'll be a picture of me, will say, this is Lynn, and this is what is unique about Lynn. This is her learning styles. We'll begin that in kindergarten. What is special, what she's passionate about. You can imagine that a kindergartner will probably say they want to be, well, I've had a kindergartner actually tell me they want to be a kitty cat when they grow up. That's fine. We're not being judgmental about what their passion is at their grade level. They're all age appropriate, right? So a kindergartner who might want to be a kitty cat when they grow up, we can tap into that unique passion. So what we're reading in the classroom might be more on cats than it is on dogs, for example. But as they mature, they may determine that they actually want to work in animal science, for example, and we can take that further. The third area is interpersonal skills. We've identified 7. There are probably 100 that you could identify, but we believe that these 7 are the most important: creativity, leadership, teamwork, civility, work ethic, communication, and problem solving. In those 7 areas, our teachers, about 26 of our teachers work this summer. We've developed a matrix for every one of those, K2, 3, 5, 6, 8, and 9, 12. So you can imagine on a matrix, work ethic looks a little different in kindergarten than it does in the 10th grade. We will be able to, we roll that out in the next 30 days, and we're developing curriculum behind that for every school to be able to use, and we will report to our parents how Freebird is doing on teamwork in kindergarten, or how he is doing in civility and what that looks like and where we would like to see him to grow. Ultimately, we hope, not this year, but next year, we'll be able to give our community a report that might say something like, in 6th grade, our kids struggle with civility. But by the time they're in the 11th grade, we've seen a difference based on what we've taught in that area. Academic skills will get you a job, Interpersonal skills will help you keep it. Some people are, will just say, speak for myself only. I was never in the beta club. I wish I had been. I was a really good C student, but my interpersonal skills got me in different arenas through life. So we know that these things can be equally important to people as they move through, and we want to be sure that we give students all of these. So you can imagine trying to figure out a evaluation system that matches where we're going. So I spoke about each one of these. So each of our schools, we have 34 schools, they all have their unique renewal plan. So I get the question all the time, how do they all look different, but you just said this directional system. Our directional system is what we call tight. That will happen in every school. How it plays out, there's some flexibilities within our schools depending on the needs assessment. Here's an example that you might can relate to, and this is the way I like to think about it. At Food Line is Salisbury is home of Food Line, so I use that as a great example. In Food Line, 80% of every Food Line is exactly alike. When you go in the store, you will find the same Food Line product, whether you're at the coast or you're in Salisbury. However, 20% of the store manager determines. So you might find flip-flops at the beach, and you wouldn't find those flip-flops in Salisbury. The store manager makes those decisions. So that's how we look at our 34 renewal plans. They will all have the components that I just mentioned to you, but there's some freedom based on their needs within their schools. So if you go to our website, and I would encourage everyone to follow us on our website, we're trying to keep it very organic as we move. You'll see this renewal guidebook. And inside the guidebook, you'll see all 34 of our schools, and it will have key indicators to which flexibility that school's actually using. So some schools use all the flexibilities. Some schools only use a few. And there's various reasons why. Here's kind of where we're at in our renewal plans. So all the schools listed on the left-hand side have been approved by our board. They started implementing today. The people in the middle are our schools and our teacher-led design teams that are still working. They've kind of got a plan. It's not been approved by the board. They're still working in some areas. 3 of them actually come to our school board for approval at our next meeting next Monday night. So 3 of those will move from green to the darker blue. In the light blue are schools that are still creating. They're not sure what they're going to do yet. For various reasons. They've had principal turnover in their school, or it's just taking them a little longer to decide. We went through a nasty thing called school consolidation last year, and may still be in the process of that. So some of our schools got stuck in that. Each one has a 1-page sheet that you can read about what their goals are, their vision, and where they're headed. But here's a video that might describe it a little better.
Because of Renewal, I have been able to repurpose some funds and hire individuals who are experts in their area. So I was able to hire a dance instructor. She has a degree in dancing. I was also able to hire a karate expert, and both of those individuals teach classes. So they work for us during the day, and then in the evening they teach classes at their studios. So we have taken our students outside of the classroom. We feel that great learning takes place outside of the classroom. So we took our 4th graders to the mountains and to see their faces and the experiences they had when they asked, are we in the clouds? We took our 5th graders to the Outer Banks, and we were out in the Sound and went to the ocean and had classes. And so those were some memorable experiences that we were trying to create with our students.
Well, one part it was funny. We dissected a squid, and I was disgusted. I did not like it. I liked it. It was just disgusting to dissecting the squid, and yeah, I like to explore a lot, and I like going different places.
we're going to go for the hill. Okay, and then, remember I told you to get the touch, feel? Yeah. Let's get to find out, are they all really smart?
Renewal has allowed us to think outside the box at North Marion High School and to create a system of education that we would want for ourselves and for our children and for our future. Some flexibilities such as changing our calendar to meet that of Rowan-Salisbury's calendar has allowed our students to engage in a wide variety of opportunities that otherwise they would not have been afforded. Because of our calendar change, our enrollment in dual credit CCP courses has increased by over 300%. The financial flexibility allows us to think about how the dollars best serve our students. Many of our students haven't been outside of Rowan County or experienced the wide variety of careers available to them in their future. We use some of our funding flexibility to fund field trip opportunities. Our students this year got to attend the musical Hamilton. They got to perform on the stage of Hamilton for the cast and ask the cast questions because of this funding flexibility.
We did, well, they took us like through baby steps because this is a new class and for me, and I've never done this before, but I always wanted to, so they taught us how to do a pitch and they went step by step with us first, and they had like different assignments, like this part you would do this and this part you would do this, and this part would be your last draft and stuff like that, and that's how I got to, over time, learn how to do a pitch myself.
So I think that just gives you a couple of ideas of the secondary and the elementary. So the way they use that funding flexibility is when they have hiring vacancies, they may use that money for the field trips. So Knollwood has 85% of their students are free and reduced lunch, and they have the largest Hispanic population. Those children have very limited experiences and vocabulary to hook knowledge to. So that's where we start with them.